Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So the purpose of today's video is to distinguish myself from channels which really play on the mental and emotional weaknesses of a very large portion of the population. So let's get to it. All right, so I'm gonna cut to the chase. So if I wanted to have 1 million subscribers by now, I easily could have. The reason why I don't is because I do not dumb down my content to the level of strictly appealing to people's fears and emotions. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this video is, I've been called out as of late for using some alluring thumbnails and more provocative titles, and even maybe dipping my toes in the realm of prediction. This year I had probably my most provocative video ever was the one with Guy McPherson, where he's basically saying that mankind is going to be extinct in 10 years. Now, I never said that. A tenured professor of evolutionary biology said that. I just provided him a forum to express his ideas, and I made it abundantly clear in the disclaimer in that video that these were his views and not my own, but that at least his views are backed by some sort of scientific research. There's a lot of channels on YouTube. I was just pissing around last night, going down the YouTube rabbit hole, and it's amazing how a lot of people who have absolutely no credentials whatsoever, strictly charlatans and shock jocks, playing on the emotional weaknesses of their viewers. And I don't even think it's that they're necessarily trying to be manipulative. I think in many cases they believe it themselves to some degree or another. So not that I really have to explain myself for the majority of my viewers, because I've built up a subscriber base of 170,000 people who I think are really intelligent people. And they're people who, in my opinion, one of their likes is worth 10 likes from somebody who is strictly responding out of fear. Take, for instance, some of these channels that go and, pair a bunch of different news stories together, totally unrelated news stories, put it over some scary music, and really cater to the lowest common denominator of emotional intelligence within our society, which is fundamentalism. Now, I'm not saying that if you believe in end times and eschatology, there's people who believe in that stuff or who, are willing to entertain those notions who are actually rather intelligent people. They don't make any predictions. I know a lot of Christians who say that, nobody knows the time and date. And I have great conversations with those people about life, about everything. And I have a lot of people of faith who watch this channel who I very much respect. And, I get in as much trouble with atheists, if not way more trouble with atheists, than I do with a lot of Christians. But what happens, there's a huge market out there for this stuff. If you go, you just get a bunch of, wild news stories, offbeat news stories about catastrophes and, climate disasters and UFOs and stuff like that, and you splice it all together, you put some scary music in the background, you're going to get hundreds of thousands of views, especially if you make a title in all caps saying something, apocalyptic or biblical is about to happen. And it never ceases to amaze me how many times these shock jocks can do this and get away with it over and over again. And I have the video editing skills. I have the social psychology PR skills if I wanted to really go full bore on that. I could make another channel and have 1 million subscribers overnight. Because, well, maybe not overnight, it would take a while to build up. But I know the recipe. It's not hard to do. The reason why I have to integrate some of the more, sensational titles, some of the more clickbaity type strategies that I've had to implement, because it's a competitive market out there. The only way you can broaden your audience on YouTube is if you in some way try to appeal to the mainstream. So it's all fine and dandy for a person who is very experienced in preparedness, who is very intellectual, and who, you know, is a person who I would want subscribing to my channel to, you know, criticize using some of those techniques. But that's the only way you are going to reach a broader audience in this day and age, is if you use some of the same techniques that are being, you know, people are being bombarded with on a regular basis all the time. You have to pull from those strategies. Otherwise, you're never going to get noticed. And unfortunately, that means blending in a little bit of sensational stuff. Now, I never go as far as they do to say that, you know, I call them Chicken Little channels, because the sky is always falling. You know, like I said, I've made some videos in the last year, maybe a handful of videos, which had a predictive component to it. One of them I made recently was called Humanity's Last Great War is Coming. And my whole mission now with this channel is to reach a broader audience, because I've already, you know, went into great depth on this channel of all aspects of the hypotheticals of grid down. You know, I've had several guests on the channel. I plan on having several more on the channel, and it's still going to be a very specialized channel in the new year, delving deeper into all the aspects and the skills that are required to, you know, be self-reliant. But at the same time, I also need to broaden my audience. And I feel that I only have 170,000 subscribers when there's millions of people, which I do sincerely believe would benefit from maybe even just watching a few of my videos, you know. And I think that I package it in such a way where it's going to be entertaining enough to get people interested, but not over the top enough to push thinking people away. The next video I'm going to release tomorrow probably is all about the mental heuristic that has to happen for people to become preppers in the first place. Because, you know, you don't just wake up overnight and you say, I'm going to get into emergency preparedness and build my life around that. Not that I think you necessarily need to build your life around it, but I think as you go deeper into it, that certainly seems to, you know, it takes a pivotal part of your life, because, you know, it might dictate where you live, how you do things in your everyday life, and so on. There's some people who are born into a survivalist mindset, very few. There was a lot of people who came from rural environments who just naturally are familiar with a lot of the things that urban preppers are trying to familiarize themselves with. So they're trying to get to that point, and a lot of those people take for granted the knowledge that they have of how to live off the land, because it's increasingly more rare to see something like that, as a lot of the farms are being bought up by the bigger corporations, and now they have like the GPS tractors, and really there's no, well, I shouldn't say there's no, but the small scale family farm is soon going to be a thing of the past. So even those people in the rural areas are starting to dwindle in their numbers. So there's not many people who are born into the lifestyle anymore. So in order to bring a person into preparedness, unless you're using shock jockery, which usually only appeals to a thinking person if they're in a vulnerable period of their life, when, you know, they just lost a job or they're going through a divorce and they find themselves browsing the internet for answers to their life problems, and then they find one of these videos by Jason A, or one of these, you know, self-described news broadcasters, charlatans, who, you know, claim to have all the answers. Maybe don't claim to have all the answers, but they have this passion with which they speak as though they know the truth and everybody else is just a brainwashed idiot. Even though if you look at what the information they're purveying, they're just parlaying different news stories and wrapping it, you know, in emotional appeals. So a lot of people fall for that though. What I want to know is, how do you take a person of average intelligence and move them into becoming a prepper for the right reasons? Now, I know there's ambiguity around well, what are the right reasons? That's what I'm going to discuss in this video. I think there's a healthy amount of fear because indeed SHTF is going to suck. And there is a lot to fear about a grid down situation and not being prepared for it. It's very rational to have that sort of fear, as rational as it is to look both ways when you're crossing the street. That said, it also gets over the top when it starts getting conflated with the eschatological stuff, the Doomsday prophecy, and how, like Christ is coming and this and that. If you believe that and you are not shoving it down people's throats and you're not exploiting people for money to go out and purchase things, then fine. And you know what? Even if you are, I'm never going to be a person who says, oh, I think these channels should be deleted, because I believe in free speech, firmly, fully, and succinctly. I believe that everybody should have the right to buy into whatever sorts of bullshit they want to. At the same time, I would hope to migrate some of those people who are being swayed by these sensationalists to my stuff, which I believe is more level-headed, empirically based, and logical. So that is my purpose, and that is why I have to make, I have to use high-quality stock footage, stock imagery, the music, why it has to be well-produced, and why I can't just come on here in 240p and start rattling off a bunch of stuff and hope that, a significant portion of the population, or at least enough to make it worth my while, are going to resonate with that. You have to mirror the same strategies that a lot of the mainstream uses. Now, I'm not saying to the point of being inauthentic, because we know that doesn't work also. Just like my last video talking about how PewDiePie has maintained his intrigue by continuing to be himself, not changing, not, putting too much high-end production into his content. And I think my stuff is just amateur to intermediate enough. And when doing videos like this, of course, people get to see who's behind the camera, who's making the videos, what it's all about. I can kind of complement that. I can get away with that. The reason why I do that, though, is because it needs to be palatable for the average person. Because there's a lot of people, 90% of people, who have absolutely no interest in survival and prepping, and they think it's for a bunch of nut jobs. And if you go on any Jason A video, and he's the one I single out because he's the one that stands out, there's a lot of channels that exploit the same emotional weaknesses that he does. Or I don't even know if it's a he or if it's a group of people who are making those videos or what. If you go read the comment section in any one of those videos, you'll see what I'm talking about. It would not be hard for me to make $1 million. And every day I don't do that, I'm losing a lot of money by not doing that. But the thing is, I have this thing called integrity, and I don't want to do that. I want to be on the side of history where you can look back at my work in 10 years and you can say to yourself, you know what? That still holds true today. Maybe there's a few videos that might not hold true. Well, if the Guy McPherson video holds true, ain't gonna be much going on in 10 years. What I aspire to be above all else is somebody who is propagating ideas which are intelligent and that are not going to have a negative impact overall. If I can do that, and if I can change lives in the process, and that's not something I take lightly anymore. I think for the first few years, I didn't really realize the influence I was having on people until I started this CanadianPreparedness.com business. And when I'm shipping this stuff out to people, like this gear that they might rely on in order to survive, it really gives me chills in a way to know that what I'm doing is having that much of an impact, that it might actually save somebody's life or just make their life easier. So it's not something I take lightly. So it's my duty, I believe, as a YouTuber, to provide people with accurate information so that they're not making improper decisions. Now, I'm certainly not the most knowledgeable prepper out there. There's many things I have to learn. In fact, this channel has eaten up a huge amount of my time, which could have been devoted to building skills. So I've become very deficient in a lot of areas that a lot of my peers have accelerated in because I've been too busy editing videos, to be honest. And that's something I need to find a balance with in 2019, which is why I may be going full time with this next year. Now that I have the store to fall back on if things get bad on YouTube, or if I get, cut from YouTube, the YouTube roster, it gives me a bit more flexibility with what I can do. And that means I can devote as much time as I am now to this, but also have a lot more time to develop my skills. In the next week, I'm going to be releasing a video that talks about the most important skills that you need to master before SHTF. And in doing that video, it really made me realize how behind I actually am. So full transparency here, I got a lot to learn. And there's a lot of preppers out there who are far more advanced than I because they don't spend half as much time as I do making videos. And, I think the main thing that a person needs to know is what they don't know. There's a funny quote from a character named Dean on the movie Fubar. He says, "Knowledge of non-knowledge is power." And it's funny if you know what his character's all about. He's like this drunken stoner guy. So he's always saying these things that, we call them Rickisms, if you ever watch a Trailer Park Boys. Knowledge of non-knowledge is power. And I know what I don't know. So I know the areas that I'm deficient in. And I think for a lot of people, they don't even realize that much yet. So you first have to know what you don't know in order to embark on that quest for knowledge. So that's my rant for today. I hope that explains my channel in a nutshell. And, I'll reference back to this video for people who challenge me on the thumbnails and the titles and stuff I use. It's a competitive market out there, guys. You don't realize how hard it is to, I have 170,000 subs. I'm lucky if I get 10,000 views a video. Now, I don't think that's because the quality of my videos has diminished at all. In fact, a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, this is your best video." I get comments like that all the time on an ongoing basis. Ironically, those are the videos I don't put a lot of effort into, which is weird. So maybe that's saying something about, going back to this authenticity over production spectrum. And I've stopped playing the victim with the whole YouTube thing. I don't blame YouTube for, not promoting my videos. The way I see it, when the time is right, that's going to happen. There's going to come a day in time where this channel explodes and I'm going to be able to talk in the same way that I'm talking now. And this is going to be the norm. Until that day comes, it's going to be a struggle. But I don't necessarily consider myself avant-garde in what I'm doing. In certain areas, I do think I am. And all that means is, that I feel like I'm at the cutting edge of not necessarily prepping and survival, because as I already said, I'm not the best prepper or survivalist, but in terms of delivering the information to the average person. I feel that maybe I'm slightly ahead of the curve in a lot of the videos I make, and maybe that's why there's a lag, with just the rest of the world catching up. So that's why I'm not crying about my videos not being suggested by YouTube, because I know I'm still having a profound effect. Even if, going back to the old cliche, even if I'm only helping out one person, then, it's worth it. It really is, when you think about it. But the goal is to expand. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are your impressions of this channel? Not that I care in the sense that I'm going to change my channel's approach, but it's good to get a sense of what, people's impressions are of, how they came to the channel. What do you think about the whole fear-mongering propaganda aspect to survival and prepping? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget, check out CanadianPreparedness.com, bugoutroll.ca. We've got some great prices on some high quality gear that could very well save your life. The best way to support this YouTube channel is to support yourself by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com or bugoutroll.ca. Premium quality gear at the best possible price using the incredibly secure and easy to use Shopify platform. We offer free shipping to the United States for orders over $200 USD and free shipping to Canada over $75. So support the channel by supporting yourself.